Hello, Georgetown. I'm Beverly Enos, and this is Spotlight Georgetown. You can see us Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. So on the weekends, if you're looking for something to watch that's different, join us and see who's on for the week. For those of you that might be interested in being on the show, please let me know. And if you would like to become part of the behind the scenes, if you'd like to learn how to do some of the editing or work a camera, you can let me know. And there's no training necessary. We have all the equipment. We have all kinds of new equipment, which is even more fun. So you can join us and do something and have some fun with what's going on in Georgetown. Now, today we're talking to Terry Hart, who is the president of the Historical Society, and Beverly Knapp, who is the first vice president of the Historical Society. Welcome. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
And I know that this is not as comfortable for you as it is for me, so we're going to get right into it. Now, Beverly, how long have you lived in town? You've got a long family background in Georgetown.
All my life, basically. I left for perhaps 5 years in my early 20s, and then I came back, but I was born here.
This is a recurring theme. It's amazing how many people have done that. And almost every single week when we do these shows, people say, well, I moved out for a few years, I went to college, or I got married, and then they appear. Back they come. So this
and
is
the family history. My mother came to Georgetown from Haverhill in 1914 when she was 5.
Oh, wow.
And she died in 2005 at 96.
And her name was?
Ruth Tyree.
I think everybody remembers Ruth.
Miss Georgetown of
Miss
1927.
Was she really?
Yes, she was.
Oh, wow. She was Miss Georgetown all her life.
All her life.
She really was.
Exactly.
She really was. Now, what else do you do in town? There's very few people that come on the show that don't do something else in Georgetown.
Well, I'm active in my church.
Which church?
The Byfield Parish Church. And on Monday nights, I coordinate and run a knit crochet social group at the library.
Now, I dropped into this a few times, and there were kids.
Yes.
Kids, adults, any age. And if they know what they're doing, they can come and just sit and have some chat at the same time. And if they don't know what they're doing, you'll teach them.
That's right. I will teach people how to knit a scarf, and if kids 6, 8, 10, 12 years old want to come, that's fine. It's for adults. Anyone can do anything. They could quilt, they could cross stitch, they could crochet. And the idea is that all the people there will share their knowledge. I don't know everything about knitting, but somebody else there might have the information that someone is looking for.
Okay, now what time is that on Monday nights?
6:30 to 8 p.m. It's a drop-in. You don't have to stay the whole time. You can come at 7:15.
Okay.
Although we get kicked out at 8 o'clock because the library closes.
Yeah. Sandy Kelly and I used to go down and do our bunker there for a while because just for the chat, just to have company to do things with.
Right.
And that was always fun. And it was really neat to see the kids.
Yes.
So if there's anybody out there that has kids that would like to learn to knit or crochet or
And
or even a scout troop or something, they could do this as part of a badge.
Right. And the library has knitting and crocheting books for kids and adults.
Great. Okay, that's something different. Now, what else do you do?
What else do I do? I think the biggest thing that I'm doing right now is I'm learning how to play the Scottish bagpipes.
There are actually people that give lessons in bagpiping.
Oh yes, oh yes. I've been taking lessons for 2 years. And when you take the lessons, you practice on what they call a chanter. I should have brought it, didn't think. And right now, my own personal bagpipes are being made in St. Andrews, Scotland. I expect to have them the end of May.
Oh, too cool.
So at this point, no, I cannot actually play the bagpipes. I don't have any, but you learn everything on the chanter first, and then you can make the transition to the pipes.
Oh, I think I have to have you back on the show again.
Okay.
Once you learn to play. Please.
Well, it's an adjustment. You've got a bag under your arm, you've got a blowpipe, and you're pumping this, and you're playing down here instead of up here.
Okay.
So it's a transition.
That'll be interesting. What about Carlton Home? I know you're involved with that too.
Yes, I'm a trustee there. There are, I think it's 8 of us who are trustees. We give and assist to the board that is in place. Bethany Homes out of Haverhill runs it.
Now, it's actually a home for?
It's a home for seniors, those who need a place to stay, but who can take care of themselves.
Okay.
There are 1 and 2 room apartments. There's only like 10 units available. There's congregate meals. They have someone that comes in and cooks. And it's a way of, having a smaller home.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, being looked over, but yet you maintain yourself and you're free to come and go.
Okay.
It's a lovely, lovely place to have, so that you don't have to go to, let's say, a nursing home or assisted living.
And that's right on Andover Street, so if people
Yes.
drive by, now they can know what the Carlton home is and what it does. We have a lot of interesting things like that in town, that people see the sign but don't really know what it means.
That's true.
So.
That's true.
How did you get involved in the Historical Society?
My mother made me.
She was active?
She was active in the society from the very beginning. And she used to say to me, "You can do this, you can do this." And what she was referring to was guiding at the museum on Sunday afternoons. And people can come and have a tour, and you take them around and you just literally explain everything that's in there. I can't do this. I can't do this. This is too much. I can't memorize that. Sure you can. Well, the trick was you just had to be there frequently.
Yeah.
And read the information and, of course, try and learn it. But by being there and either giving the speech or following someone who was giving it, you picked up the information.
So this is all Mom's fault.
Yes, most definitely.
Thank you, Ruth. Terry, your turn.
My turn. Moved to town 21 years ago, and I was active duty military at the time, and kept the same house even while I was on active duty, and got transferred to San Francisco and came back again and retired here. I'm currently the veterans agent for Georgetown as well as 6 other towns. My offices are in Ipswich, but I'm on the road more often than not, and just love being here. It's a good town. It's a great place to be from.
Yeah, it is. It is. We talk about that a lot. How did you get involved with the Historical Society?
I've always been a major believer in the issue of history and in teaching your children history. We've been fortunate being in the military, moving all over the country, and we've spent time taking our children to places that are of historical significance because we were there. They got to do the bicentennial at Yorktown during that time, and
Wow.
my wife made costumes for our 2 oldest, and they wanted my son to be the drummer and my daughter to be the camp follower. We went to the National Historic Farm down right outside of Washington, D.C., and they got a chance to see what an actual colonial farm would have looked like at that time. It was just a natural progression for us to come here and do that. I love history, always have loved history. Joined the society, I think, within the first couple of years of being here in town, but being a father at that time with my daughter went all the way through the Georgetown High School system, and my sons came after them. So I did the soccer dad. I was the coaching for both boys and girls soccer. I was Boy Scout troop leader with Troop 50 in town, and we were very active with the kids. So we didn't have a lot of time to get involved with the Historical Society. But when we came back again, Beverly knocked on the door and said, "Hey, we need some people to do tours at the museum."
You are your mother's daughter.
I am.
Yes. And that was a great way to start the process of learning the history of Georgetown. And my wife and I have also been antique lovers forever. And her father and grandfather used to actually restore antiques in southern Connecticut. And so that was also kind of fit right in there.
This is a natural transition
It was
for
a
you.
natural transition.
Yeah.
very much so.
Yeah. Now, Beverly, exactly what is the Historical Society and what does it do?
The Historical Society is a group of volunteers that got together in 1959 to start the society. And that would be Ruth Tyree, my mother, Polly and Bob Hills, Homer Tapin, Nat Tidd, Rolly and Nat Severance, Satira Stetson, and probably a couple of others that I'm forgetting at the moment. But they started the society to cultivate an interest in history, and in particular, Georgetown history. Now, when they first started, it took them a while. They weren't incorporated till 1962. And in 1964, they purchased the Pillsbury Dickinson Witham House down on Jewett Street. Now, in 1964, Jewett Street was woods. There were no houses there, or very few, I should say. So the society had evening meetings at the Witham House. Well, nobody wanted to go there because it was so dark, because we didn't have a lot of street lights back then.
Yeah.
So, but we did own it for a few years. And then in 1970, the opportunity came from the Spalding family to open the Brocklebank Museum. And I'm not sure, it was an agreement the first few years, and then in 1975, the society purchased the Brocklebank house and sold the Witham house.
Okay, so that's how the transition from that came.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was an old schoolhouse up on Andover Street
That's right.
that got added.
That got added. That was actually given to the Historical Commission. And in 1984, it was moved from what was the Pearly Farm, which is now the Georgetown Club. And it was brought, I don't know, however, lifted up on a truck and wheeled down Andover Street on East Main, to East Main, very slowly, very slowly.
I actually took the day off work that day and followed it, and I took pictures. If you would like them for the Historical Society, I will dig them out for you. But I took pictures all along the route, and they did. They put it up on a big flatbed, and they just lifted the whole thing up. You know, they put the wood underneath and lifted the whole thing up, and then they had to disconnect all the lights, all the wires from the telephone poles all the way down the hill.
And they probably...
And then reconnect them afterwards. And it just rolled so slowly. I remember the kindergarten class was out in the downtown, right on the center of town, all with little American flags, and all the kindergarten classes are down there as it came
I don't
through.
remember
And
that.
yeah, oh yeah, it was quite a deal. And there had to be at least 40 or 50 people that followed it the whole day when they moved it from one place to the other. It was just one of those things, you never get to see something like that in your life.
That's true.
To actually watch
That's true.
the old schoolhouse be moved back. Because when it was on the farm, it was a garage with garage doors. And they had to change it back and renovate it and bring it back.
Now, I should point out, when it came down to the Brocklebank property, as I say, it was owned by the Historical Commission, but the society loaned them the use of our land to put the schoolhouse on.
Okay. Now, Terry's going to give us an overview of the history of Georgetown.
Just a little.
Yeah, okay. Highlights.
Highlights. Well, actually, Georgetown's history begins in 1639. We could say earlier than that if we wanted to try to capture the history of the Native Americans, but we have a hard time doing that. 1639, Ezekiel Rogers and a group of Yorkshiremen from Rowley came to the New World, and they purchased land which is now all of Rowley, all of Georgetown, through Bradford, and parts of Byfield and Oxford, as I remember. And this was all one community. It was named Rowley. The area, we were the West Parish area, and this area was really fairly wild for the first 20 years of Rowley's existence, because all they did was they brought the animals in the summertime to the fresh brooks, but they didn't use it for a whole lot. Around 1660, they started actually moving into this area, and in fact, John Brocklebank and his brother Samuel each bought property in 1661 here. Samuel brought, I think it was 72 acres, and John bought 10 acres, but they only used it seasonally. The first official resident that took a permanent residence was John Spofford, and that was up on Andover Street, probably right up near where you are now. And that's the first official resident of the town.
Right
Now,
on Spofford Street, probably.
Yes. Most people don't realize that the center of town for Georgetown during the colonial era was not where we are now as the center. It was actually at Elm Street, because the whole concept of a town back in those days was where your church was. And the West Parish Church was there at the time. And that was the center of town during most of the colonial period. Our museum was right across the street from that. And that was used at that time as a tavern. And it was a beautiful way station. And people coming from Rowley would then go down Elm Street to Boxford or to North Andover. That was the main
makes
route
sense.
in town.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, that's one of the reasons if you go on the historical house tours, most of the houses that you see in the tours are on Elm Street.
Yes, many
we
of
have
them
quite a
are.
few of them that are right there on Elm Street. So
Because you can just kind of go from one to the next to the next, because that was originally the downtown.
Sure.
It's where people lived.
And, what we were doing during the colonial period here, of course, was all basically subsistence farming. That's what people did. You made your house, you cleared your land, you actually grew your crops for yourself, and you raised your cattle. That didn't actually change until after the Revolutionary War. It was around 1810 that the Little Brothers moved from West Newbury down here and opened a store. Again, in our museum is where they actually opened a general store. And they introduced the concept of Georgetown people, then Rowley people, making parts for shoes and exchanging them for goods that they could be bringing in from Newburyport through the shipping. They would bring them down to the store, and it was an exchange, a barter system. From that point on, in the next 2 to 4 years, shoemaking grew so fast in Georgetown that the center of town shifted from Elm Street to where it is today. There was a huge building put up on what is now the karate studio in town. There was a 3, 4, 5 story,
Four-story building.
brick building, and that was a shoe factory. And that's what Georgetown did for many years, was known for its shoemaking.
And now, most of the buildings that we have in town have changed through the years due to fires.
Yes, they have.
Because everything back in those days was wood, and everyone was heating, was lamps were oil lamps or candles. And there were lots of fires. I remember
And
seeing...
there were no fire hydrants.
Right, I remember seeing a presentation many years ago from the Historical Society, and how many fires, there were, 4 or 5 major fires that we lost the center of town. But it was still the same center as it is now.
That's correct, the center that it is now. And of course, a lot of people don't realize, but if you look at our town around the mid-1800s, 1860s, somewhere in there, there were also very few trees. They'd all been cut down to use for the firewood or for putting up the homes.
Right.
Now, Georgetown changed again in the late 1800s because we became, believe it or not, a recreation community for the people of New York and Boston. In the summertime, they loved to come to Georgetown because we had the pristine lakes, we had the horseback riding, we had whatever they wanted for the outdoor, rural, or actually, I guess it'd almost be country amenities. And they came here. We also happen to be situated right on the B&M Railroad line that ran from Boston to Maine.
So the access was easy.
So the access was quite easy.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we had this train that went from Haverhill all the way to Ipswich that came the other way. It was a trestle type thing that went over the B&M. So we were at crossroads at that time, just as we are today.
And that also helped, of course, with all the shoe factory work, because we were on the rail line.
Sure, we were on the rail line. We could move the goods very easily.
And I remember hearing stories about one of the other things that was that Georgetown did for a very long time was ice in the wintertime, because again we were on the rail lines.
We were on the rail lines. We had the pristine lakes, and that's important. The clean lakes, they actually froze over early, and we have pictures of the ice cutters that would get out there, cut the ice, and store them in the ice houses, which were actually right down on Pentucket Pond, where most of the American Legion Park is now, was a very large ice factory. And they were then shipped to the cities for the summertime when they needed the ice to keep things cool.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people that came to Georgetown, I came here as a summer residence for the same reason, because of the lakes. And a lot of people actually came into Georgetown that way, even in current times. Up until back in the 50s, it was those 2 ponds were still actively summer residents. And gradually, houses were winterized, and now you find very few in summer residences. But that's how a lot of Georgetown people got here in the first place.
Yeah.
Right, and when he's talking about people coming here to visit, whether they came by train or by coach or whatever, they would go to the Baldpate Inn.
Yes.
It's now the Baldpate, well, it was the Baldpate Psychiatric Hospital. I'm not sure if they still refer to it that way, but it's
I think
still
it's now just Baldpate Hospital.
Baldpate Hospital.
Yeah.
But it was a very fancy inn, and even when you and I were growing up, that was in the woods too.
Oh, yeah.
There were not a lot of houses up there.
No. There wasn't a
Folks,
lot
you
of
don't
anything.
know what rural is. Bev and I do.
Now, we've talked about the Historical Society. There's also a Historic Commission, and there's a difference between the two. Or used to be more of a difference, but
Yes, there is a difference.
There is a technical difference.
The Historical Commission is a government entity regulated by the Massachusetts Historical Commission. The people on that board are appointed by the selectmen and a combination of being recommended by the board itself. Whereas the Historical Society people and the officers were strictly a volunteer group, we only answer to ourselves.
But
And
right now, most are the same.
Yeah,
most
we have
memberships are the
several
same?
members that are on both
Okay.
boards.
If you have an interest in history, you have an interest in history on both sides. But I think one of the important things to recognize too, though, is when Beverly says the schoolhouse is owned by the Historical Commission, that means the people of the town of Georgetown own
Oh,
that schoolhouse.
Great.
You know, and
But
they
the-
need to understand, they have some very historical artifacts that they own
Yeah.
as a town.
So how is all of this funded?
We have about 5 ways that we get our funding. Number one, absolutely number one, is memberships. We're kind of like WGBH sitting up here and asking you to pledge your money now, but basically memberships are what put us in, give us our operating capital. We also have the sale of items, and let me show you just a couple of them. This one I think a lot of people have seen around town. It's the history of Georgetown. Now, are you in here? I know Beverly Knapp is in here several times, and a couple other members of our society, and of course.
No,
this-
but I own that book. I bought it, I think I bought it at Theo's.
Oh,
Yes.
that's
There are
good.
lots of places around town that you can actually purchase the book. And it's wonderful. It's got pictures of the old centers of town and things
Yes.
like that.
Then and
It's
now.
quite the
Yeah,
story.
it's kind of a real good history of what Georgetown
And
is
we
and how it
have
came about.
Actually, a lot of other books that we sell, including some of them are legend books, some of them are true history books. We have one that we just put out that is a catalog of all those from Georgetown who served in the Civil War. It's not something that your average person is going to want to buy and read, but it is a good document for somebody who wants to do that type of research. Now, the latest one, which is actually, I can't say we commissioned it, but boy, I'll tell you, Christine Comiskey did a wonderful job, is A Respectable Man of Color, which is actually something that is overcoming the legend of Cuffy Dole, so we know who the real Cuffy Dole is. And Chris did a wonderful job putting this together. And this is now available. In fact, this
Saturday.
weekend, this Saturday, there will be a book signing and sale of these at the Georgetown Library.
And they'll be available at the library for
The
a
library
long
will
time.
sell them, and Kay's Interiors will sell them.
Okay. And we've heard Cuffy Dole, we've heard that before. We've heard that
Mhm.
name before. Now, how else do you get funding? So we've got donations or membership. How much is the membership?
Well, the memberships vary, but it runs from as little as $15 for a senior for an annual membership up to whatever you want to donate. You can be a sustaining member of the society, and it's usually $200 for a family. And each one gives a little bit different level of what you get. Just for basic membership, it's automatic. You get to go into the museum free at any time. If you go to the next level, then we'll also give you a discount on any of the items that we sell through the society. And if you're a sustaining member, you get into all of our events free.
Now-
And which is the third thing that we try
Okay.
to make money on, which is our events. Whether or not that's a lecture series or our house tour, which Beverly will explain later, I hope. These are events that bring in money and help us sustain the organization. Trying to think what number 4 is.
You used to do ice cream socials at the museum. And I know that if you had enough members that would actually come in and help and participate, or volunteers, that's something that you might think about doing again. Those were a lot of fun.
They really were a lot of fun. It also brought us a lot of people, and it actually got me introduced to Beverly's mother. And she told me a lot of stories about my house over on Tenney Street, which is I didn't realize, but she used to walk by there, and she knew a lot about my home, which I thought was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes, and the ice cream socials have always been free, but it is the way we got some more money, because we have a jar for donations, and that is our fourth way of getting
Right.
money for the society's donations.
Now, is the society nonprofit?
It is a nonprofit
So if people wanted to make a donation, this would be tax deductible.
It is tax deductible.
So that's a nice, easy way to help out with that. And of course, there's always information in the newspaper
Yes.
about where you are, and you can actually look in the little Georgetown phone book, and it will have information. If they want to mail a donation, they can do that.
Right, and there is also, by the way, a link to from the Georgetown website to the Historic Society website.
Oh, good. So that's an easy way.
Yes.
Just go to the Georgetown website and just hit this Historical Society.
And we have a fifth way of getting money, and this is one that I get to say thank you to the town of Georgetown for, is the Historical Society has been getting money through the Community Preservation Act, through the CPC here in town, voted by the members of the town at town meeting. It's very important to us. If you've gone by the museum, you've seen we have a beautiful new fence in town, which, by the way, is called the Georgetown Fence, and that design is in the Smithsonian as the Georgetown Fence. A new ramp for handicap access, and we're asking for some things this year too at
Yeah.
town meeting.
Yeah.
But it is very important for us to help preserve the history of the town.
Right, right. Now, Beverly, we talk about the museum a lot. And I mean, I remember when my kids were little, I was a room mother, and I got to go to the museum and help, walk the kids through, and don't touch this and don't touch that, and the story about the trunk and all of these things that are down there. What are some of the things that they get to see when they come into the museum?
Well, of course, anybody gets to see it, but when we bring the school kids through, we always talk about the haunted meal chest. That's what you're calling
Yes,
the trunk,
the
I
trunk.
think. It's not, it's bigger than a trunk. But they get to see artifacts, old cooking utensils, fireplaces. We have a fireplace that's 4 feet deep and 8 feet long. It's one of the largest in New England. We explain to them about cooking in the old days, and how hazardous it could be. You've got this big fire going, you've got pots of stew and whatnot going, and you've got your mother and your grandmother
With the
in
dresses
long
and the
dresses
aprons.
and long sleeves, you know. And of course, I tell the kids that the boys would be out chopping all the wood for all these, because every room had a fireplace in the house. But in addition to that, they'll see some old rifles, shoemaking tools, cobbler's benches. We have the Atwood's bitters bottles. We have a Victorian parlor, and we talk about social life on a Saturday night in the 1800s, when there was no TV, no computer, no nothing like you have now, no cell phone. We have quilts. We have a few children's toys. Again, playtime was much, much different than it is now.
So basically everything that you would find in any other museums, but this time it's reflecting Georgetown.
That's right, that's right. Well, I don't know, did the other museums have potty chairs?
I honestly don't know. It's a question I'm not prepared to answer.
We have a couple of toddler potty chairs, which just throws the kids into spasms, and then I explain that we had no bathrooms, we had no showers, we had outhouses.
Yeah.
What's an outhouse, And then they look at the little potty chairs, well, your little 2-year-old brother couldn't go out to the outhouse, Then I
Okay,
explain the
makes sense.
business of chamber pots and collecting everything and washing, and they just go berserk.
Now, the hours of operation for the museum.
Okay, each year it's the Sunday after 4th of July. So this year it's July 13th. And we go through Columbus Day weekend. And we're open on a Sunday afternoon from 2 to 5. But at this time it's only every 2 weeks. We'll have a couple people at the house, and they will give you a guided tour for an admission fee of $3. And I think students and seniors are $2.
And again, if you had more people as part of the society, you might be able to have more
Yes,
more
we
days
open
open
every week.
Right. Right.
When they first started in the 70s, they were open Wednesday afternoons and Saturday afternoons. But we just don't have enough people, and the fear of trying to learn about everything in the museum, holds people back.
Yeah.
But it's just like anything. You have to do it.
And the more you do it, the more you're ready to talk about it.
Right, exactly.
You can always write the information on the palm of your hand. That's why I write phone numbers.
Well, we even let them take a paper copy with them.
Well, then that works. How easy can it get? You can read it. What projects is the society working on now?
Well, you have to understand that that relationship between the society and the Historic Commission is very important to us, because the commission is tasked by the state to do certain things. We have come up, our commission has come up with some things they would like to do as well. And that kind of leads us into the society's got a lot of work to do to support the Historic Commission and the state struthers. One is both the downtown and the Elm Street areas are going to be declared historic districts. There has to be a lot of research done to actually document all of those areas and what it was like back when. We're starting working on these historic markers at various places around town. They're going to be long-term markers that are going to last very well with old photos of what was there. Great example of one of the first ones is that if you look at the parking, where the park and ride is today, that used to be a church. That was the Peabody Memorial Church right on that property, and on the back side was our old library. We're going to have a marker on each side showing what it actually looked like back in the day. But the research and the coming up with the pictures, that's all the Historic Society's responsibility to do that in support of the Historic Commission's work on that.
Did you ever wonder why Library Street was called Library Street?
No, I assumed at some point there was a library on it.
Well, I didn't know that when I was a kid for a long time. You know, it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But the very first library before the Peabody Library was, as he says, at the back end of the park and ride, and they named it Library Street.
I mean, so many of our towns in New England, Elm Street is because there were a lot of elm trees, and Maple Street is because there were maple trees, and Library Street is because of libraries, and School Street is because there was a school, and Church Street was a church. So.
And speaking of libraries, now that we are in our new library, they have a historic room there. They have a lot of documents there. The Historical Society needs to be stepping up and helping to sort those documents, put them on microfiche, get them all cataloged so that we have a ready reference for
So
the people of the
if
town.
somebody wanted to join the Historical Society and that was the only thing they were really interested in, they could join and just do that.
That's
They don't
right.
have to participate
Right.
in everything.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
Ruth is really overseeing that, Ruth Eifert, the director. And so if somebody wanted to spend 2 hours a week just working in the historical room, that would be great. Because we need more people. We don't have enough people to do everything that we would like to do.
Right, so some people, if that's a real interest, Ruth will give you the white gloves. She made me wear them when I went to take out one of the town reports from from before.
Way back when.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we're also, the state has told us, or we have identified over 400 houses in this town that are over 100 years of age, and we're supposed to catalog those for the State Historic Commission. Trying to catalog 400 houses
We're
is
working
a
on it, yeah.
lot of work.
Yeah.
And we're also looking forward at this time. The school just came out and announced that there's going to be a graduation requirements for those who are going in as freshmen next year for community service. And we really want to partner with the school and make sure that we are part of that organization where they can come and work with us on community service, because we have a lot that the young people can do, and they can learn so much from
That
it.
would be a wonderful opportunity for the kids to learn where Georgetown has come from. So
Over the years-
that'll be future.
Over the years, we've had quite a few high school girls come and be guides and help clean. And I just gave a recommendation for one of the girls. She was applying for a scholarship, and they wanted to know what she had done in the community. So I gave her a good write-up simply because she was very good.
Yeah, all these things look great on those applications.
They really do.
She was quick to learn. She was eager to be there, you know, and there are some Sundays you don't have any visitors. That's the way it goes. It didn't bother her.
You do something
Didn't
else.
dampen her spirits at
Yeah.
all.
Now, what does the society have planned? Upcoming events or seasonally, like what types of things do you do?
Upcoming events. The next one will be May 18th at the VFW. It's a Sunday afternoon at 2:30 p.m. We're going to present The Victorian Lady. Candy Carl, an actress from Connecticut, will be here. And she's going to give you a glimpse of the 1890s, and she's going to dress from corset to gloves. You
Okay.
get to see her in her chemise and her drawers.
And what other types of things do you do throughout the year? Not just in the spring.
In June 21st at 1 o'clock at the Pearly School Ball Field, we're going to have vintage baseball baseball as it was played in 1861,
Oh, that should be fun.
with the rules that were either there or not there during that time. I guess they were quite different
Okay.
than what it is now. And it's the, what is it? The Lynn Live Oaks. I can't remember the name of the other group.
Essex.
The Essex Baseball Club.
Okay.
And they play, and they don't have gloves. You know, it was a really tough game, I think, back then.
Yeah, yeah. We
And-
protect everybody now.
Yes, exactly.
But that's
exactly.
that's the type of thing that makes people understand the historical society is not just about dates and when
Right.
things happened. It's actually showing people how life went.
Yes, yes.
And that's a lot different than what a lot of people, think, oh, the historical society is doing this again, and that's always been a joke for such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when we came out of Rowley, we have the old Nancy.
Yes.
Of course we do.
That's another.
We all
that's,
know that.
That's another standard. Now, what can the people of Georgetown do for the society, other
They
than
can
donate
join.
money?
They can join. And that's probably the number one thing is, I realize that my love of history means I would automatically be a member of the society. But, anybody who lives in Georgetown or works in Georgetown is a part of Georgetown's history. We are capturing this history all the time. And we'd ask everybody in town to join. Just become a member. And that helps us more than anything else does. If they want to take the next step, there are places on the membership form to check to say, contact me, I'll help out. That's fine. We would like to have that. But that's, more important is just to join the society and become a member. And then I'd say the third thing is, when these things come up with CPC, support us. We need the help. It's very important.
Community preservation is such a part of preserving our history.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what
Yes.
CPC
Yes.
does, preserving the community as well as the history of Georgetown and whatever else goes on.
And if they want to get involved, I think what you said was absolutely correct. If they want to get involved, we can bring back these things like the ice cream social. That was one of my favorite events. And we do have the house tours, usually once every couple of years. A lot of work. Beverly is organized. We have another one coming up in September.
Yes, September
And
27th.
that's
I volunteered at the last one. I worked a house
yeah.
for half a day. That was fun.
It's fun.
You
It's
get
a
to
lot
see
of work for those who have
everybody
to
in
organize
town.
it.
Yes.
But if you want to
yes.
volunteer to work at one of the houses, you see everybody in town because everybody comes through. You get to see all your old friends that you haven't seen for years. And so that's a good time. Or go on the tour. Pay the money and go on the tour.
Yes,
That's just
yes.
as much fun. You get to see people walking up and down the streets, and that works out really well. Now, I know you don't have regular meetings so much anymore because of the number of people that you have as part of the group, but they can still find you through the newspaper or go onto the website
Yes.
and hit the link and find some information.
And for those who attend town meeting, we'll even have handouts this year.
Okay, you always have those types of things. So if there's anyone out there that's looking for something to do and to become part of what goes on in Georgetown, and you like history, this is a great place for you to volunteer, or become a member, or go to an event. So I want to thank you both very much for coming. This was great, and I think
quite welcome.
we will find,
Thank you very
we'll
much.
get some memberships and interesting stories. I learn something new every time we do this. This is so much fun. I'm Beverly Enos, and this is Spotlight Georgetown. Don't forget to join us Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Thanks for joining us today. Bye for now.